an important service announcement for the quasidb service. I'm going to put a change in on the weekend for the signals, and the reason for it is you would have seen the yen bubble was very extreme, and so we want to avoid the extremes as sentimental traders. So I'll show you what I mean by this. So here's 0% at 100%, and what we want to try and do, we want to try and avoid these areas. Something like this, something like this. And see, what happened was that the yen was very squeezed. And so if you think about it, if you were to enter, your risk to reward would be quite poor, because where is it going to go? You enter here, hasn't got much room to maneuver. And so it hits that, it's like a train journey, and it hits the terminal. So you can imagine, like King's Cross in London, it can't, the train physically cannot move, it stops there. So it hits a brick wall, the mega pain zone for the guys who were short, and then reversal. So my implementation idea, there's the 50% line, is to put in 2 rows onto the signals and to check whether or not we're here. If we're below, we ignore, okay, and if we're above, oops, then we ignore. But the signal will be fine as long as we're not beyond 80% or we're below 20%, because really there isn't anything really for it to move. I mean, I can entertain an idea of 90%, 10%, but 80-20 seems, quite logical. This is the 50% line. So at the moment, the signal triggers if we're a buy at the high level, or if we're a sell. And so what the signal will now do, it will just simply do 2 additional checks to see if the pair is here. So this would be pain zone, and this would be pain zone. So we don't simply enter in the pain zone where there isn't actually any more room for it to go. And you would have seen in the signals we had lots of XXX yen, and they triggered, they were in profit, but there wasn't any room to maneuver, and the bubbles, they converged. So we had then successful, and then they just went to no, and they closed at a loss. So if you are in profit, don't forget to move your stop ahead of break even because of the reversals. But this is an important change that I'm going to add to the signal, and just so we do not open if pound yen, for example, is in this area. On Monday we're at 92%, and they were very, very skewed. So really, from a risk to reward perspective, there wasn't any much more room for it to breathe, and so we hit a brick wall, and then we potentially could reverse. So yeah, I mean, that is just way too skewed. So we'll only trade within these parameters now, and not trade the extremes. And so just so you know what it looks like on the bubble chart, let's put that black, and let's try and make that halfway by eye. And so we know on the bubble chart, these are the extreme areas, and yen was up here and down here, and the pound was down here. So we avoid these areas now. So hopefully that's clear. I'll be putting this change in the weekend. It won't change anything your end. We'll just simply get less signals, and we'll avoid the extreme areas. Okay, so that's important. Hopefully you understand that this is the max pain area where everyone gets stopped out, and it's the fear zone, and that's the max pain zone where they get extremely fearful and then they exit. So this is mixed and that's mixed. So this is buy, and this is sell. So we'll be trading in this area, we'll be trading in this area, but we won't be doing these black areas, if that makes sense. avoiding the black areas completely. And so yeah, that just wraps it up. So next week we'll have it's the same as usual, just we won't be trading these extremes, which hopefully makes sense because if you were to get on the train and you paid for a ticket, it doesn't actually take you very far. It doesn't take you where you want it to go. Where if you think your stop would be here, for example, and you want like something here, for your risk to reward, it can't get over here because this is your final destination. So what happens is that you come across, and then it does this because it can't move any further, and that's why we want to avoid the extremes. So hopefully it makes sense. I can, if it doesn't, just let me know because it's important that you understand it. And we're going to try and avoid the extremes on the bubbles now. So have a good day, and I'll speak to you guys much later in the evening.